This Belarusian tennis player is being called a sore loser for the comments she made after recently losing to champion Coco Gauff.
She won the match not because she played incredible, just because I made all of those mistakes.
So that's Aryna Sabalenka. And to bring you up to speed, Coco Gauff recently beat her at the French Open final. But listen, Aryna didn't take that L well at all.
It just hurts. Honestly, it hurts. Like, been playing really well, and then in the last match, go out there and perform like I did. That's hurts.
Now, all of this sparked a lot of online criticism. Just have a look.
She literally just won the French Open, and the girl that she beat is having a boo-hoo fest about how Coco wasn't necessarily the better player, but I just made too many mistakes, and blaming it on all these other factors.
Coco Gauff is already a household name. She's already cemented her place.
Aryna Sabalenka just got exposed on live television, and the tennis world watched it happen in real time. After losing to Coco Gauff in the French Open final, Sabalenka sat down for an interview that quickly became a masterclass in how not to handle defeat. Instead of showing grace or taking responsibility, she made excuses, blamed everything except herself, and even dragged other players into her mess. The interview went viral for all the wrong reasons, and people finally saw what many already knew about her character. Do you think tennis players should face consequences for disrespecting opponents after losses?
The conditions were terrible, and she simply was better in these conditions than me. She won the match not because she played incredible, just because I made all of those mistakes from, like, if you look from the outside, kind of like from an easy balls. If Iga would win me another day, I think she would go out today and she would get the win. It just, like, yeah, it just hurts. Honestly, it hurts. Like,
Aryna Sabalenka walked into that post-match interview after losing the French Open final to Coco Gauff, and what should have been a standard press conference turned into a complete embarrassment. She had a chance to show class in defeat, to acknowledge her opponent's excellence, to take responsibility for her performance. Instead, she chose to make excuses, minimize Coco's achievement, and prove to everyone watching that she's a sore loser who can't handle being beaten by someone better than her. The most offensive part of Sabalenka's comments was when she said that Coco didn't really beat her, that she beat herself with her own errors. She pointed to her 70 unforced errors during the match and acted like that was the only reason she lost. As if Coco had nothing to do with forcing those errors. As if Coco's strategy, shot placement, and mental toughness didn't contribute to Sabalenka falling apart. That's not analysis, that's denial wrapped in excuses.
I'm sorry for this terrible final. If Iga would win me another day, I think she would go out today and she would get the win. It just, like...
Let's address the unforced errors because, yes, 70 is a lot. That's a terrible performance from a technical standpoint. But here's what Sabalenka and her defenders don't seem to understand. Those errors didn't happen in a vacuum. Coco Gauff created the conditions that led to those errors. She moved Sabalenka around the court. She made her hit extra shots. She stayed solid in the big moments while Sabalenka crumbled under pressure. That's not luck. That's championship tennis. Sabalenka then blamed the court conditions, as if she and Coco were playing on different courts. They were on the same court, in the same stadium, at the same time, in the same weather conditions. Everything was equal. One player adjusted to the conditions and played winning tennis. The other player didn't adjust and is now making excuses in a press conference. That's the difference between a champion and someone who just talks like one. The argument that she's heartbroken and should be given a pass for saying whatever she wants doesn't hold water. Everyone understands being disappointed after a big loss. That's completely normal and acceptable. What's not acceptable is using that disappointment as an excuse to disrespect your opponent and diminish their achievement. You can be critical of your own performance without taking shots at the person who beat you. Plenty of players manage to do that after losses. Sabalenka chose not to. What makes this even worse is that this isn't the first time Sabalenka has done this. There's a pattern of behavior where everything is great when she's winning, but the moment she loses, the excuses start flowing. It's never her fault. It's always the conditions, the schedule, the crowd, the opponent getting lucky, anything except taking responsibility for not being good enough on that particular day. That's not the mindset of a true champion. That's the mindset of someone who can't handle adversity. The most bizarre part of her comments came when she randomly brought Iga Swiatek into the conversation. Nobody asked her about Iga. Nobody was comparing Iga to Coco in that moment. But Sabalenka decided to say that if Iga had played in the final, she would have beaten Coco. What relevance does that have to anything? Why drag another player into your mess? The answer is obvious. Sabalenka was trying to deflect attention from her own failure by creating a hypothetical scenario where someone else might have done better. That comment about Iga is insulting on multiple levels. First, it's disrespectful to Coco because it suggests she only won because Iga wasn't there. Second, it's putting words in Iga's mouth and dragging her into a controversy she has nothing to do with. Third, it's completely irrelevant because Iga wasn't in the final. Coco beat whoever was put in front of her, and she did it convincingly. Creating imaginary matchups to explain away your loss is peak desperation. The comparison between Sabalenka's behavior after wins versus after losses is stark. When she's winning, she's dancing, she's joking with the media, she's all smiles and confidence. That's fine. Winners should celebrate. But when the tough times come, when she faces adversity or loses a big match, that confident personality disappears and gets replaced with excuses and finger-pointing. That's not championship mentality. That's fair-weather attitude. Coco Gauff handled the entire situation with grace. She didn't respond to Sabalenka's comments. She didn't feel the need to defend her victory or justify her championship. She let her tennis speak for itself and moved on to celebrating with her team and supporters. That's what real champions do. They don't need to tear others down or make excuses. Their results speak for themselves, and Coco's results say she's a Grand Slam champion while Sabalenka is making excuses in press conferences. The tennis community's reaction to Sabalenka's comments was swift and harsh. Fans called her out on social media for being a sore loser. Analysts pointed out the pattern of excuses. Even people who generally support her had trouble defending these specific comments. When you lose the benefit of the doubt from your own supporters, that's when you know you've crossed a line. Sabalenka crossed that line by disrespecting Coco's achievement. What Sabalenka doesn't seem to understand is that making these kinds of comments damages her reputation more than the loss itself. Losing a Grand Slam final is tough, but it happens to everyone. Nobody would have held it against her if she'd handled it with class. But now, instead of people talking about how close the match was or how both players competed hard, everyone is talking about what a poor sport she is. She turned a respectable loss into a character indictment. The excuse about court conditions is particularly weak. Professional tennis players are supposed to be able to adapt to different surfaces, different speeds, different weather conditions. That's part of what separates the best from everyone else. Clay court tennis in Paris has specific characteristics that everyone knows about. The ball bounces higher, points last longer, sliding is important. These aren't surprises. Sabalenka has played there before. She had the same preparation time as Coco. The conditions excuse is just admitting she couldn't adapt as well as her opponent. Think about what Sabalenka's comments say about her mindset. She genuinely believes that Coco didn't earn the victory, that it was handed to her by Sabalenka's errors. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of how competition works. In any sport, you have to execute under pressure. You have to minimize mistakes in big moments. You have to perform when it matters most. Coco did all of those things. Sabalenka didn't. That's not luck or circumstances. That's one player being better than the other on that day. The 70 unforced errors that Sabalenka kept pointing to are actually evidence of exactly what went wrong for her. She was going for too much. She was trying to blast Coco off the court instead of building points patiently. She was pressing instead of trusting her game. Those are mental and strategic errors, not just technical ones. Coco recognized that and took advantage of it. That's smart tennis, not fortunate tennis. Sabalenka's inability to give credit where credit is due reveals insecurity. Champions are secure enough to acknowledge when someone beats them fairly. They can say, "My opponent played better today, she deserved to win. I'll learn from this and come back stronger." Sabalenka can't do that. She has to create alternate explanations for why she lost, because accepting that Coco was simply better is too painful for her ego to handle. The timing of these comments matters too. This was immediately after the match, in the heat of the moment, but that doesn't excuse them. Professional athletes are trained to handle media obligations even when they're upset. Sabalenka has done enough press conferences to know what's expected. She chose to use that platform to diminish her opponent instead of showing grace. That was a conscious decision, not an accidental slip of the tongue. Comparing this to how other players handle similar situations makes Sabalenka look even worse. When Serena Williams lost big matches, she was devastated, but she still managed to give her opponents credit. When Roger Federer lost heartbreakers, he found a way to be gracious in defeat. These are legends of the sport showing how it should be done. Sabalenka is showing how not to do it, and it's damaging her legacy with every excuse she makes. The suggestion that fans should just accept this behavior because she was upset is ridiculous. Being upset doesn't give you a free pass to be disrespectful. Part of being a professional is maintaining your composure and showing class, even when things don't go your way. That's what separates professionals from amateurs. Sabalenka proved in that interview that despite her ranking and her titles, she still has an amateur's mindset when it comes to handling adversity. What's particularly frustrating is that Sabalenka has the talent to win multiple Grand Slams. She's proven she can play at the highest level. But this mental weakness, this inability to accept defeat gracefully, this need to make excuses and blame others, that's what's going to hold her back from being truly great. The best players learn from losses and come back stronger. Sabalenka makes excuses and stays stuck in the same patterns. The impact of these comments on Coco Gauff's moment is worth considering too. Coco just won her first French Open title. She should be celebrating without any asterisks or qualifications. But Sabalenka's comments attempt to put an asterisk next to that achievement. They attempt to say, well, you only won because I made errors, or you only won because the conditions were weird, or you wouldn't have won if Iga was there. That's an attempt to steal someone's moment, and it's shameful. Tennis has a tradition of respect and sportsmanship that Sabalenka violated with these comments. The sport prides itself on players shaking hands after matches and saying, "Well played," regardless of the outcome. That tradition exists because it's understood that both players gave their best effort and one happened to come out on top. Sabalenka's post-match comments spit on that tradition by suggesting Coco didn't really earn her victory. The reference to how Sabalenka and her sister behave similarly in these situations is interesting. There does seem to be a family pattern of confidence when winning and excuse-making when losing. That suggests this is learned behavior, something ingrained rather than just a one-time mistake. That makes it even harder to excuse because it's not a momentary lapse. It's a character trait that manifests consistently. Social media absolutely destroyed Sabalenka for these comments, and rightfully so. The clips of her press conference went viral with people pointing out every excuse, every deflection, every attempt to minimize Coco's achievement. The court of public opinion delivered its verdict quickly and decisively. Sabalenka's reputation took a major hit, and it's entirely self-inflicted. She could have avoided all of this by just showing some class. The suggestion that every Sabalenka fan should take it easy is probably good advice at this point. Defending these comments requires mental gymnastics that aren't worth the effort. Sometimes your favorite player does something indefensible, and the best response is to acknowledge it, hope they learn from it, and move on. Doubling down and trying to justify disrespectful behavior just makes fans look as bad as the player they're defending. Looking forward, this incident is going to follow Sabalenka for a while. Every time she loses a big match, people are going to remember these comments and watch to see if she makes excuses again. She's created a narrative about herself that's going to be hard to shake. The only way to change it is to actually change her behavior, to show grace in future defeats, to give credit to opponents who beat her. Until she does that, she'll be known as a sore loser who can't handle being beaten. The contrast between Sabalenka and Coco in this situation couldn't be more clear. Coco won with grace and humility. Sabalenka lost with excuses and disrespect. One player elevated herself and the sport. The other player diminished herself and disrespected the sport. That's the real story of the French Open final, not the score or the statistics, but the character that each player showed in victory and defeat. The final point worth making is that this isn't about pile driving on someone when they're down. This is about holding professional athletes accountable for their words and actions. Sabalenka earns millions of dollars playing tennis. She has sponsorships and endorsements based on her public image. She represents the sport on the biggest stages. With all of that comes responsibility to conduct yourself professionally. She failed that responsibility, and the criticism she's receiving is deserved. Aryna Sabalenka humiliated herself on live television by refusing to accept defeat with grace. Her excuses, her disrespect toward Coco Gauff, and her inability to take responsibility revealed a character flaw that all the talent in the world can't fix. Champions know how to win and lose with class. Sabalenka proved she only knows how to do one of those things. If you're tired of sore losers disrespecting champions, hit that like button and subscribe for more honest takes on tennis and the people who play it.